So, your birthday was yesterday?
Yeah,
How old are you now?
I'm 51 years old.
Are you happy to say that, or it just
It
is what
doesn't
it
matter.
is?
Age, the number doesn't mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
I mean, some people it means a lot to, but it doesn't really mean anything to me.
So, what age doesn't mean anything to you? Does that mean that you're okay with everything that you've done in your life? Is there things that you still anything big that you still want to do, or
No, I'm not saying that I'm done living by
well,
any
yeah,
means. I'm just saying that all the stuff throughout my life that I thought I wanted to do, I've either done or decided to not do it.
what is something you decided to not do?
Become a store manager in retail.
You wanted to do that?
Yeah, at one point I was well on my way to being a manager, and I seen what happened to my friends that went on to become managers, and you get a bigger target on your back, and if something slightly goes wrong, and the answer is to get rid of the manager. What I witnessed in the late '90s and through the mid 2000s when I was active in retail.
What store was this at, or place of business?
Well, I mean, it was in the home improvement industry in a box store, and it was interesting that, they tell you got to move if you want to move up, you got to do this if you want to stay on. I mean,
So this was a big place.
yeah,
Yeah, because I was going to say most small businesses aren't like that,
no.
like smaller franchises and things like that.
And I didn't know why they would treat their managers that were grossing millions and millions of dollars out of their stores that way. But then as I got older, I realized it was less expensive than paying out money through lawyers to fix a problem or an issue that was perceived by employees, or issues that may or may not have happened that were what I would consider beyond the store manager's control, but he's inevitably overall responsible for.
Yeah, and I can say with Jennifer being a manager, it's dependent on who the owner of the company is and who the manager's higher ups are, but a lot of, like you said, that there's a big target on your back, more so from your employees, and just all encompassing things of the business pretty much fall on your shoulders, and it can be stressful.
Well, I agree that statement is true, but at the department head or assistant store manager in a big box store that I was working with, it was a breeze. But the minute you got the keys to the building, in that position, it just seemed like the loyalty, the care, the appreciation from the higher ups dissipated drastically. And even though you weren't on an island in the middle of an ocean, it sure sometimes felt like it, being a part of a company that has 4,500 stores. It kind of was par for the course, and the time also involved. At the time, we're talking 2000, 2001, 2002. We just had a baby, and I was working 78 hours a week. My wife wasn't working. She was staying home taking care of the baby. And, I mean, it just got to the point where I wasn't seeing the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wanted to be a part of that. So, I mean, at that point, I decided that this isn't really what I want to do, even though the money was just crazy.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I've learned in the limited work experience I've had, or broad work experience, depending on which way you look at it. Money isn't the end all be all. You can be very unhappy and be making decent money.
But it takes a certain point in your life to realize that. And until you realize that, somebody telling you that makes you feel like they're full of shit.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't
So
have
I mean, it's great that you and I can have this conversation, but we can't go back to our younger selves and and have the conversation. At that point, I wouldn't listen to anyone, and no one else could encourage me. And I mean, that roots all the way back to why I ended up in the Army at 17.
Yeah, let's go. I want to go back a little bit further. Probably about that age, I guess. Grandma told me a story a couple weeks ago about you picking up some hoodlum's car because they wouldn't pay you your money for delivering their pizza or whatever it was. Is that a true story?
Yeah.
What car was it? Because you're a car guy, so you probably remember.
It was a 3-cylinder Geo Metro convertible, not much of a car. So
That's
it wasn't a very Herculean task by any means.
Still.
The ass of one of them things doesn't really weigh anything.
Oh, man. So you went from the back, you went from the rear bumper?
Yeah.
Oh,
And it was, I was delivering pizzas at Fort Stewart, Georgia.
While you were in the Army?
Yeah, I was in the Army trying to make extra money.
Oh, goodness. So did you call Grandma and tell her that story?
I don't know how I don't know that I called and told her.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, that's one of them stories. It was yellow, had a black top and black seats.
And they paid, didn't they?
No, it was in a trailer park too. So.
Oh. Yeah, that could have turned out different, especially nowadays, today's world. But
I lifted it up about 3 or 4 feet up in the air and then dropped it. And then I got in my car and left.
probably blew those shocks right out.
I have no idea. I was 19 years old at the time this was going on. It's 1989. I just got back from Korea.
So then let's rewind a little bit more. So how did you make your way into the Army? I think we talked a little bit about this before. You were...
Well, I dropped out of high school a month and a half into my sophomore year.
Why?
I was stupid. School was stupid. I was bored in the classes.
You didn't turn to drugs or alcohol or nothing like that?
No, I didn't do alcohol. I smoked some pot in the smoking lounge with everybody else because that's what we did. You could smoke at school at that time.
Huh.
You know, I had some guys who were smoking it in the classroom with these things called Zeppelins that didn't let off any smoke.
Huh.
So, yeah, and it was... And then I just got bored and tired. I kept getting into fights, and I could care less about school because it didn't... I understood what was going on, and I could do the math, I could do the tests, and it was all just, why am I here?
Yeah.
So
it wasn't challenging, wasn't engaging.
Well, at that time, very little things were challenging to me because, I mean, if I needed something or wanted something, I'd go get it and I'd go do it. Sometimes it didn't work out good. I'd take Dad's truck apart and one time couldn't put it back together, and that didn't go well. But the point I'm getting at is that I got out of high school, I think it was September of 86. Went and got my GED a month later and got the second highest score for that test cycle in the state. I don't even remember what it was. And then I signed up for delayed entry program in the military because Dad's like, you got to go. You got to get out of here. You got to do something with your life if you're not going to go to school. So get in the military.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and took their ASVAB test, and they apparently thought I was pretty smart. And I was able to basically pick what I wanted to do. So,
it's a good position to be in.
How
did you know what to... Sophomore in high school, when I was a sophomore, I had no thoughts of the future. I didn't know what options were out there career-wise. How did you pick? Like, I'm sure you had tons of options. Like, 10 probably options.
To be honest, I wanted to pick a job that sounded cool, but didn't have anything to do with being outdoors a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So when they said I could be an NBC guy, I'm like, where do they work? Well, most of them, if you're in a company, you have an office up at the headquarters, and you stay in the office and you manage your office. I'm like, that's the one I want.
And what did you say?
NBC. So N is in November, B is in Bravo, C is in Charlie. NBC, which stands for Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Warfare. So the job I went to school for was 21 weeks, which is a really long training period for the thing. But I had to learn how to draw out maps for radiation fallout for nuclear attacks, determine the kiloton, megaton of the nuclear blast, nuclear bomb, determine fallout areas, had to predict weather charts with weather and wind data, and you'd lay out a map and say if this hits here, who's going to be affected, and how long before they're in, develop timelines, and that's just part of the nuclear. And then you get into biological warfare, which is, chemical warfare, where they will send you something that gives you the flu or something that gets in your system and causes you to have your nerve blood cells to break down and become non-cells.
Yeah.
It's called blood agent. And blood agent, what it does is it really liquefies your blood, taking away all of the characteristics that would chemically and scientifically related to blood.
Yeah. Well, that's scary. Luckily, we haven't been there in a little bit. Well, at least not that I'm aware of.
But yeah, that was the job, and then to decontaminate and clean and wash vehicles down after a nuclear or chemical or biological attack. And they can combine chemical and biological material together, like mustard gas and nerve agent. So the mustard gas would eat all your skin off and keep eating and eating and eating because it's a chemical in your arm and wherever it lands. And then the nerve agent mixed with that would get in the bloodstream and break down your nervous system.
That's just gruesome.
Well, I mean, that's
Yeah.
war. I mean,
yeah, I get it. It's just, I haven't thought about it a lot, so it kind of, it gets forgotten about, at least by me.
That was my purpose and job while I was in the Army, was to do that. And when I first went in, the first duty station was Korea. I graduated AIT. I just turned 18 on April 16th. And on April 21st, I landed in Korea for my first duty station tour.
That was my, what year was that?
Is April of 1988, and the 88 Olympics was going on at that time too, or had started the Summer Olympics. So it was a fun time to be 18 years old in a place where there's no drinking ages or limits or restrictions for anything. So all the refreshments you desire, and I mean, a 40-ounce bottle of beer was 85 cents. And you could get soju, which is like a high-powered rice liquor, like tequila-type style refreshment. You could get basically a fifth of that for $2.
Goodness, that could have been disastrous.
It was. I drank a whole lot the whole time I was there. We'd get up to go to PT, which is the exercise in the morning, and anybody that's been over there, where I was stationed at Camp Casey, and the vending machine on each floor, there was a soda machine, and there was, Coke, Pepsi, Sprite, Budweiser, Bud Light, and Busch.
Wow.
And it was, I think, 80 cents for a beer and 35 cents for a soda, or 50 cents, I don't remember, but I'd always grab a beer on my way down to PT, slug it down, throw it in a can on the way out, and I'd drink that beer before I'd go run. I'd even smoke cigarettes while I was running.
Yeah.
Singing cadence. I always had me sing cadence because I was the loudest guy there.
What did cadence sound like?
Like
left, right?
No. Here we go again.
Ah.
That kind of thing. I haven't done that in a long time.
I could see you belting that out now.
Yeah, well, left, lefty, right, left, that kind of stuff.
So, how long were you there for?
Well, it's a year tour, and all of the guys I went over there with, we all went in the company. I think it was 91st Chemical Company, Camp Casey. I can't remember the name of the company. It might have been 89th Chemical, 91st Chemical. I think it was 91st, but they all thought I was going to come back married for some reason. And the irony of that whole statement, we were there for a year, and I was the only one that didn't get married.
Wow. Married to Korean gals?
Yeah.
Or?
So they all got Korean girls that they acquired, and they all came back, at least the group that I went there with,
Yeah.
and I was kind of laughing. I didn't get a tattoo either. Everybody got tattoos, and I didn't do that. But I sampled the local cuisine virtually every day and had a different meal several times a week in that area.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
We got some experience in. You told me a story about driving. Was it a Humvee? Yeah.
The Humvee was really new, and they still had Jeeps like they had in the Korean War and whatnot, and they were phasing in the Humvees. This is '88, and they had just gotten Humvees inland at Korea, and I loved to be around cars and drive, and I started out driving a deuce and a half when I first got there for the company.
A deuce and a half is like the large 3-axled military vehicles that you might see driving down the highway. They've got like 52-inch tall tires, and
they're 6x6 basically.
They're big, heavy, all-wheel drive, giant monstrosities of vehicles.
Yeah, and I got to where I could drive those things without even using the clutch, start to finish, shift it, not grind the gears, and the motor pool guys were just blown away at how I adapted myself to driving this clunky old truck.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of fun though, isn't it? Once you get the hang of it.
Well, that starter I know is pretty powerful because you could start it in first gear and it'll start and run and get going, and then you never even need to touch the clutch after that.
Yeah. I remember the first time I experienced that was in a Mazda Miata. The clutch went out, and so it was always engaged, and you would put it in first and start the car and make sure you had space in front of you because it was moving. I didn't know a starter was that powerful, but apparently it is.
Yeah, that was amazing. So they got the Humvee in, and they let me try out driving the Humvee. It was brand new. When it got there, I don't remember how many miles on it, but it was not much.
What engines were in there? Diesels?
I think it was that damn GM 6-liter non-turbo diesel, if I remember right.
It sounds probably right for the vintage.
The top speed was 65-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. I got to drive in that thing, and we had competitions, what's called a driver's rodeo.
This sounds fun.
And you would take your Humvee and you'd go through this obstacle course, and they only gave you, in some cases, less than a half an inch clearance. Alley docket backing, where you pull in, you back up to like a dock where you'd load, and there was an inch on either side, and you had to stop the vehicle within an inch of the dock.
And this was set up with cones?
Well, some of it was wood structures with cones. I mean, they had little sensor switches that if you hit it, it would buzz or light up. I mean, it was all wood and nothing technical because there's no computers and shit. So it was just simple, lantern battery with a switch and a light or a buzzer or whatever. I mean, I don't remember much about all of that. All I remember is some of these courses where one of them was you'd start out going 45 miles an hour, and there were cups with eggs on them. And you had to make it through these cups with eggs on them that started out real wide and got down to the width of your tire, and you had to stop and not knock over any cones or cups in the process with the eggs. I mean, it was an elaborate system. Then you had to, Z drive, and you had to reverse drive through an obstacle course like an S course.
Mm-hmm.
And the tolerances were always set and adjusted to your vehicle. I mean, there were guys doing this in deuce and a halves, 5-ton trucks, Hemmets, which a Hemmet is the biggest ass truck the Army's got that hauls around the tanks. So it was a competition from the littlest to the biggest.
Mm-hmm. Where did Humvees? What was smaller, the Jeeps?
Oh goodness, yes. The Humvee's like 7.2 or 7.3, if I remember wide.
And a Jeep is like 5 foot.
I think it's 16 feet 4 inches long. I don't know. I haven't thought about this in a long ass time, but it.
So the Jeeps did do it.
The Jeeps weren't in the competition because it was being phased out.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing any Jeeps.
So the Humvee was the smallest.
in the competition.
And it's still a big vehicle. Like if you see a regular Hummer, like a H1 or an old school Humvee driving down the road, and you look at it compared to, like today's modern 1-ton truck, it's pretty dang big.
Well, your big is a relative term. You get
Yes.
used to what you do.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had a lot of fun in that thing. And I did so good. I beat every competition, company level, battalion level, and then won the post. So that was 3 competitions: company, battalion, post, and then we went to the theater finals, which was up in Wanju, and it was up by Camp Liberty Bell. No, Wanju's south. I think it was Liberty Bell was where the competition was on the DMZ. So they sent me by myself with a map in the Humvee from Tungdashan, Korea to Camp Liberty Bell, which is about the equivalent of driving from St. Louis to Kirksville, Missouri on 2-lane roads only.
With a map.
Yeah,
in a foreign country.
I mean, yeah.
In a giant vehicle.
No.
Yeah. You had weapons? Your own weapons?
No, I didn't have any weapons. There was no need for weapons.
Okay.
But the vehicle was a pretty good weapon, though.
Yeah, I could imagine.
It handled great on the corners, and it was just an amazing. I mean, it was an amazing, fun trip. I remember parts of it. I remember running off the road, driving through somebody's field and up across the creek, and getting back up on the road and thinking, "Huh, that was interesting."
Nobody around, nothing?
No, well, I don't know if they were around, but anyway, it
was somebody's
I was
place. Yeah,
18 years old at the time.
Was it on purpose or for accident?
Well, it depends on how you look at things. I purposely had an accident. I don't know. I was really pushing it pretty hard to see how it would handle and do under those conditions, which weren't a part of anything to do with the driver's rodeo. But back then,
it helped with the driver's rodeo, though. I bet.
I don't know about that, but
that's what we'll say.
There's no. It's not like today where you got phone tracking and it can show stuff. And
yeah.
None of that stuff was back in the 80s or even 90s for that matter.
Yeah. So you went up there and did the driver's rodeo?
Got a plaque, got a big ass flag. And
American flag?
No, it was a flag from my company I was with. That's like the one that hangs up the company QC on the wall in the Quonset hut. They gave me that big flag. It was like 5 foot by 4 foot or something with a chemical symbol on it.
You still have it?
Yeah, it's in the basement. I can't find my plaque. It's somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Do you talk to anybody from, battalion? Or your troop? Or
no, I've not had any contact with anybody ever that I've served with in the military.
Did you ever make any good friends from it with anybody?
Well, when I was in the Gulf War, I mean, I got a lot of what I would call good friends, but I mean, one of them lived in Stockton, California. The other one was from somewhere in Oklahoma, and the other one was from somewhere down in Texas. It's just,
yeah,
it's hard to keep a long distance relationship with somebody you think you're in love with, let alone just a friend.
Yeah.
So it unfortunately, those relationships died away, and I only remember a couple of their names. So that is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So you said you had been into cars, and you said school was easy. So what in your life growing up, childhood, kind of, for lack of a better term, made you smarter and kind of led you towards cars and mechanical inclination?
Well, honestly, unlike today, I mean, there was 3 television channels. That was it.
So it was boring to watch TV.
And just your standard board games and books to read. And I didn't like sitting in the house. I always wanted to go outside and do stuff. And see something on TV or see a kid with the go-kart or doing something, and I'd want to do it, and I'd have to figure out how to do it. I don't really remember much from that time frame. I mean, I remember working on my dad's van, taking the oil filter off because he never changed his oil. And that's the only experience I really remember vividly, was taking the oil filter off of his green paper van that he sold to Lowell Danewood. Yeah, that was the guy's name. How did I come up with that?
It's funny when you start pulling from the vault.
So I went through all kinds of ordeal. Couldn't take it off with the wrench. Stuck a screwdriver in it. The housing came off. Then the filter parts came off. And then I just kept sticking stuff in it, trying to get it off until I was down to like an inch-wide tube stuck onto the motor.
Yeah.
And then I went to vice grips and stacked vice grips. And, I mean, I didn't have a torch. I didn't know about torches. And so my mission was to get it off. And I think I spent 6 or 8 hours on it one Saturday, and I got it off.
Yeah, that's definitely memorable. I could see how that stuck with you. And for everybody out there, an oil filter should take about 15 seconds to come off.
Yeah. Well, I didn't give up on it until I got it off.
Yeah, and that's not due to lack of knowledge or lack of trying. That's more due to lack of changing and maintenance. It just kind of seizes up on there.
He never changed oil. He kept adding it. When I took the drain plug off, nothing came out.
What
so
engine
I had
was
to stick
this?
a Phillips screwdriver in there until I got whatever substance was in the bottom of the pan blocking the hole open, and it came out like 10-year-old milk that had been left outside.
That's it's quite impressive.
And I put new oil in it, put the filter back on and the plug back on. Dad drove it for a week or so doing his paper stuff, said change it again. I changed it again, and I got everything to come off, and the oil was just as nasty coming out of it. And he told me to change it again one more time, and I did, and then he gave it to the guy. And then that guy drove that thing, I think, for 4 or 5 years still, delivering newspapers.
Was it a Ford?
Yeah, a Ford short wheelbase van with a 351 4-barrel, which was
dang,
kind of a really badass van. Cause
yeah,
it was the tiniest van they had.
With a big engine.
Had absolutely nothing in it but a driver's seat, and that was it.
I was thinking it would have been, I guess, maybe not in a van, but I was thinking it'd be the straight 6.
Nope, Dad's red one he bought to replace the green one was a 306.
Yeah.
With a carburetor. I think it was an 82 or 83. But his green van was a 79 van. I really thought it was cool. He made me take the wheels off the new van and put on the green van because he didn't like the hubcaps. So we swapped the wheels and tires onto the new red van that he got.
So did you go do paper route with your dad?
All the time.
Did you miss anything about it, like anything about it, hate anything about it? Or it was just work?
Well, I got to spend time with my dad. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't. But I mean, that was probably the most time I was ever allowed to spend with him, because if he's doing a newspaper out, he comes home, goes to bed, then wakes up around 8:30, or I think 4:35. Anyway, there was only a couple hours during what we would all consider daytime that he was around. Otherwise, it was 1 a.m. in the morning to 8 a.m. newspapers, Monday through Saturday. Sundays, he didn't have it.
So he slept during the day?
Yeah, all the time.
Mm-hmm. Did that affect you at all, you think? Would you like to have seen him more, or you just understood that that's what you got to do to raise a family?
At this point, I never really formulated an opinion on that.
Yeah. It just was what it was.
I couldn't care less either way.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe it's because I was able to go on the paper out with him on the weekends and do that and help him whenever he needed help. Even when it's school day, I'd go out and roll newspapers and go to school.
Oof.
That didn't happen very often, but Those are the times I appreciated. I was with him on the paper route when that big snowstorm came through in '82 with the 27 inches.
He went out and delivered papers?
Oh, absolutely.
Did it have posse?
No, we put chains on,
Okay.
and this is in the green van at the time.
All right.
And we left out at 1 a.m., got the papers, and it just lightly started snowing. And all the other carriers went to the lot there in Clayton. It was a bowling alley and a grocery store. Now I think there's a hiking place in that plaza where we used to pick those papers up. My kids get camping gear there all the time.
Alpine Shop?
No,
REI?
REI.
Yeah.
It's in the same parking lot that REI is in,
Mm-hmm.
where we used to pick up the papers every morning. And as the night went, the snow kept getting deeper, and Dad's still throwing the papers out, and there's like 10 inches of snow. And the bags they were in were red, so I was from the Globe Democrat. And he says, I'm going to throw the papers. Well, the last hour we were on Couch Avenue, and he turned down this street off of Couch, and the plow trucks had been running. And I'll never forget this. I was on my folding chair in the back rolling newspapers. And he turned the corner, and next thing you know, I'm sitting up on the front by the hump where the engine is, looking at him, going, what happened? He said, it snowed. And he backed up, and the whole front of the van was imprinted in this snowbank. The grill, the headlights, the windshield, the mirrors, everything was like, it was like a 8-foot high wall of snow.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that as long as I live. It was hilarious. We backed up and it stayed there. And I mean, he's like, I think we're going home. And so we left and went down Couch, got on Watson Road, Big Bend, something like that, and drove home on the main road. And then I just remember getting home, pulling in the driveway. We couldn't even get in the driveway because there was so much snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one memorable thing from back then.
So the whole oil filter, no maintenance thing, do you think that influenced you on doing preventative maintenance on your vehicles?
Well, it may have been a catalyst to do that, but I as far as how I feel about vehicles varies on what the vehicle is to me. So like the car I drive every day for work, which I put close to 800 to 1,200 miles a week, some weeks even 2,000 miles on it. I literally change the oil when the light comes on because I need that car to last me as long as I can possibly last. And I do as much maintenance as can be done to that car because it's not very expensive to maintain the car, but it rewards me with a car that goes 75 miles an hour and gets almost 23 miles a gallon doing it.
And it is still a V8, still has power to get up and go.
Yeah,
and
it's a town car series. It's a Panther platform car, which Crown Vic, Grand Marquis, or town car, same damn car. But if you take care of them, I've heard stories 400,000 or 500,000 miles on these things, and they're still selling for $1,200-1,300 with those miles.
Yeah.
So I'm.
So let's go back. What was the first car you ever drove, and how old were you? Jane told me a pretty interesting story too. That did you have her press the pedals and you steered, or she steered and you pressed the pedals?
It was something like that. That was in the Rambler with Jane. I think.
Was that your first car?
No. So the first thing I drove was my dad's paper van, his backup van, when I was 12. And the second thing I drove was our regular van, which was a Chateau club wagon, basically a fully loaded version of a car today, but a van.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad used to leave the keys in the kitchen on the counter, and when he'd leave to go deliver papers, I'd go out and drive around in the van. I did that a lot. And then it all came to an end when I wrecked the van. And Dave Hughes, the carrier that was covering our house where we lived, went down and got my mom up to come get me out of the thing. So I was doing donuts in the parking lot at Manier Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
There's an ice cream cone now there.
Yeah.
I was doing donuts in there, and there's this church across the street that sits down in a valley.
Yeah, that's about, what, a quarter mile, half mile from Grandma's house, your house?
It's 3/10 of a mile, because I got reminded that's how far the walk was every day I walked to school. But anyway, I was doing donuts in that upper parking lot, and I came out, and the wheels were spinning, and I lost it, fishtailed it, and went straight for the roof of the church.
Oh, God.
I mean, literally, the van was going, wheel spin 80 mile an hour, driving how many miles an hour, I have no idea, right for the roof of the church. And for some reason, I guess God said no and put me in this big giant ravine right on the side of the road and laid the van on its side in the ditch. The ditch and everything is still the same as it was when I was there.
I'm going to have to go look at that next time I'm over there.
And so I was sitting in that ditch, couldn't open the door because it landed on the driver's side. And then my mom standing there in the nightgown asking me, "What did I do? Why did you do this?" And I'm like... So anyway, that was... that
was experience one?
No, that was the first wreck I had. But the second one was up at New Hampshire. I got caught in a ditch doing a burnout out of New Hampshire Racquetball Club Street. But I just powered through it and it kept going.
So you hit the ditch and got back on the road somehow?
Well, I don't know how, but somehow, I guess is the right answer.
Yeah. So that was your first car? It was a Rambler?
No. So Dad bought me a car to shut me the hell up, in his own words. He paid $150, and he got it from some guy that he knew from the barber shop up in St. Anne. It was a 1968 Chevrolet Caprice, 4-door holiday hardtop, which means it's basically there's no post on the doors and there's no post in the car, so when you roll all the windows down, it's completely open like it's a convertible other than the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Had no seats, no carpet, no power steering pump, 307 two-barrel.
No power steering pump?
He took it off.
Bunka did, or the previous?
The guy he bought it from, because he said he didn't like power steering. So it was turning the steering wheel through a power steering gearbox with no power steering.
Yeah.
Which is, if anybody knows anything about cars, it's like twice as hard because the ratio on a manual steering gearbox is far different than a ratio on a power steering gearbox.
Yeah, it's like if you were
I think it's 30-1 compared to 4-1 or some kind of damn thing.
Yeah, it's significant. It's a lot harder, especially in that big, heavy boat.
So I was 15 years old. I didn't have my license, and my dad said, "Well, you work on trying to get this car running, and by the time you get it figured out, you'll have your license." So anyway, the next day when he was sleeping, I got a milk crate, throw it in there from the garage.
The good old milk crate. This is where it starts.
And took the plates off his paper van and put on it, and went out driving around. I did that a lot. My friend and I used to go up and do burnouts in the parking lot, and I mean, there was no seats. Both of us were on milk crates. And I drag raced some guy in a Shelby GLHS, which it's not really a car, but it's like taking what's a modern day equivalent to a Horizon. Anyway, it's like putting a turbocharger on the lawnmower and then calling it a car. And it beat me.
How'd that make you feel?
Well, it was hilarious because I drag raced him out in front of the high school going towards the Dairy Queen. And my buddy's like, "Dude, something's wrong. You got smoke." And I'm like, wow, I covered the whole road with smoke.
Blue or white?
I don't remember. Anyway, we turned and drove up Weber Road there, and I backed it in the driveway in the same spot it was, took the plates off, put the plates back on his van, got the milk crates out, cleaned it all up because I knew he was going to get up soon. And then I said, oh, crap, there's transmission fluid leaking. So I got out the kitty litter, and put it on, and cleaned up the driveway, cleaned up all the spots on the driveway where the transmission fluid was. And he comes out and he says, what are you working on the car? Yeah, I was working on it, making it run. I think something's wrong with the transmission. Well, how do you figure that? Well, it's kind of leaking a little bit. And he walked over to get the county Times paper thing. It's a little rag paper they throw at the house with the. He went to pick it up and he comes back and he says, so you just ran it in the driveway? Yeah, Dad, just ran it in the driveway. He says, come here, dumbass. And he says, what's that? And there was about an 8-inch red stripe going from the white line on our driveway all the way down across the railroad tracks and as far as you could see of transmission fluid. And it stopped right at our driveway. And then it started again under the car. He says, it's just the driveway, right? Oh, yeah. I got my ass beat on that one pretty good.
Well, how many cars do you think you've had?
Well, I did have a sheet at one point that I wrote them all down on in a book. And I don't know where that is, but I think it's over 34 cars. And these aren't cars I bought and sold or flipped or, hell, I didn't know what the meaning of flip was.
Yeah.
I go buy a brand new car and 6 months later trade it in, buy another one.
Oh, is this when the money shuffle started?
Well.
Or it propagated and instigated the requirement of learning the money shuffle?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first car I had was the 68 Caprice 4-door Holiday hardtop. We just talked about. Second car was a 1964 Rambler American I bought for $550 from the guy I was bagging groceries with, and Dad was so pissed off about that. I think he was still mad to me when he passed away. And then I got the Rambler. Then I went in the Army, and when I came home on leave at Christmas time, I went to Dave Sinclair Ford. And Tom Hannigan sold me a car when I was just 17 on credit. It was a 1985 Ford EXP, cream-colored, with a 4 or 5-speed transmission. It had a sunroof in it and tan and black interior.
What's a EXP?
It's a really cool car. They only made it for a couple of years. And, I mean, it's like an Escort, but a sports Escort.
Okay.
It's a true 2-door fastback with the Escort running gear in it.
Yeah.
And then I bought that and owned it from, I guess, December till when I came home after I got out of VIT in late April, before I went to Korea and went to Bud Anderson Ford on Manchester and bought an 89 Escort GT. And then I drove that 89 Escort GT until, I think, October. I put 25,000 miles on that car between April and October because I come home every other week.
Dang.
It's 1,000 miles each way coming home from Savannah, Georgia to St. Louis and back.
Mm-hmm.
And then I rolled it down the side of a mountain in Dalton, Georgia, completely destroyed the car. And then Then I used Grandma's car, which was a 79 Granada, blue 4-door, that my dad's mom had, and they let me use because I totaled the Escort. And I used it to haul my Rambler, which the engine blew up on before I went in the Army. A rod came through the side of the motor, and I was going to haul my Rambler to back down to Fort Stewart and work on it because they had open shops where you could take your car in and work on it yourself, and they had lifts and they provide you all the tools. And if you wanted to be a mechanic, you could. You'd go in and you'd rent your bay. It's like $10 a day or the week for 50.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the tools you'd ever need, you could go to the tool rental center and you just give them a deposit on the tool. You take the tool and you bring it back when you're done. I mean, it was like a straight up auto mechanic
That's cool.
warehouse. There's like 9 or 10 bays and everybody's in there. So my thought was to take that car down there and do that. And it didn't work out. I couldn't find an engine. I couldn't find a replacement block, and there was no internet. There was no networking. It was search all the junkyards anywhere you know around you, and that was it.
Yeah, talk to who you know, and that's it.
You couldn't like network an engine out of California. Or I didn't know how to do any of that then.
Yeah.
So I sold the Rambler after I had it painted and redone and all this to a guy, and he turned it into a drag car, and it drag raced from that point on. I don't know what happened after that. And then the thing that really pissed my dad off, I think more so than the buying the Rambler, was the fact that even though I didn't have the title to Grandma's car, I traded it in on a new truck.
How did they let you do that?
I don't know. Call Georgia.
Well, yeah.
So I traded it in. I gave him the car. They said, "Do you have the title?" I said, yeah, I got a title. I said, "Well, that's fine. You can get it later." And I'm like, okay, so, all right. So they took the car. They had already sold the Granada before I'd even given them the title back from Dad. So it was, Dad was very mad that I used the Granada to trade in on this Ranger, red and white, short bed, V6, 5-speed Ranger, which was a blast.
Yeah.
And I had that Ranger, I don't know. The following summer, I came back. It was the summer of 90. Yeah, it's the 89. So it's the summer of 80. Yeah, so it's just the summer of 90 I had the Ranger. And I was up and I ran into a guy I hung out with at high school. And there's a candy factory across from this place where Tire T Golf Course used to be.
Yeah.
And they had a big giant parking lot where the employees would park. Now there's some kind of building there. So I was showing him how I did a Rockford on this guy I was chasing down at Fort Stewart because he cut me off and was bragging about how, I did the Rockford, which is you go backwards and you turn the wheel and then you put it in gear and you start going forwards again.
Mm-hmm.
And it went flawless. And he's like, well, let's do it again. So the parking lot was big enough. I hauled off in reverse, jerked the wheel around, and the truck turned over.
What?
Right there in the parking lot. So
I haven't heard this one.
The truck landed on its side, and it was scratched up, and we're climbing out of the truck, and all these guys from Tire T come running across the street, and we flipped it back over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thanks, and got in the truck and took off. And I went from that parking lot to Sunset Ford to trade it in, and they couldn't get a deal with me. So I took the deal sheet from Sunset Ford to Dave Sinclair. Dave Sinclair beat their deal on the same exact truck. They both had the same truck.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I got my 1990 Ranger extended cab, which was black and I added a black camper shell. Because at that time, it was really cool to put those snug top camper shells on.
Yeah.
And kind of lower them down. So I put lower profile tires on the wheels, than the tall ones. So it sat a little lower, and it had the V6 is automatic with the extended cab. And then I went to the Gulf War. In October of 22 is when we deployed to the Gulf War, and that's when Dad took the truck and brought it home, and your mom, Nancy, used it a little bit. And then when I came back in April, I traded it in on my 5.0 Mustang, which is Calypso Green automatic.
Didn't you say you still kind of tracked where that vehicle is? Isn't it still around the area?
The Mustang?
Yeah.
I don't know. I never paid the money for a Carfax because, part of me doesn't want to know if it's available,
right?
And another part of me would like to have it back. I don't know. It's just difficult to explain.
Mm-hmm. Well, I get the predicament.
So
slightly.
I still have the window sticker. I have the owner's manual. I even have the little tabs with the numbers that, if back in the day, you could put these numbers in a key cutter. and squeezed the trigger, and it cut the key for your car.
Yeah.
So you didn't even need to have anything but these little silver tags, and there was one for the front and one for the back, or one for the doors and one for the
ignition
trunk. And,
okay.
Yeah, so it was doors and ignition and trunk and glove box.
I was thinking Chevy.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then I drag raced the hell out of the Mustang at Oglethorpe Speedway in Savannah. I was going down the drag strip with temporary tags in the windows when I just brought it down from the dealership.
What did it run? Do you remember?
I have no idea. It was bracket racing, and at that time I didn't understand it. We had a card, and we'd write our time down. There was columns, and I just wanted to go out and run the piss out of the car without getting any more tickets.
Yeah.
But then after that, I traded the Mustang in on when the Posse went out the following year in April on a Ranger XLT long bed regular cab 4x4 with the 4.0 V6.
That's a heck of a unit.
Yeah,
a lot of power for a small truck.
It wasn't enough for me though. So,
well, not from going from a Mustang power to truck power.
Well, with all that stuff we've talked about at this point, between all the swapping and trading and tickets and payments, and I'd gotten a scholarship to go to college, and now I don't have the big revenue coming in from the money from the military paycheck, which wasn't big revenue, but to me it was.
At the time, yeah.
So I kind of, while all this was going on, I was getting student loans for school when I didn't need them because school was paid for. So I bought a convertible 65 Galaxy 500 and fixed it up, redid it. And then I also bought a conversion. Well, no, I first bought the 89 Suburban, which was brown, had bucket seats, it was brown and white, tri-paint. Mm-hmm. And it had the way back seat and then the center bench with the one side that folds up to get to the way back, and it had buckets in the center console, all factory. Had a 307 in it, and I couldn't understand that truck. The timing was jacked up. I'm driving on the highway one time, and I'm just like, why is this thing? So I just peppered the gas pedal. When I got where I was going, I lifted the hood, and it looked like lava was attached to the motor, just glowing red. It was like the blob was attacking the engine or something. I don't know. And at the time, I didn't have the knowledge to really understand, so I took the carburetor apart, and these looked like fucking shark testicles come out of there or something. I ain't sorry about the language, but anyway, it was a mess, and I learned to hate GM right there.
Yeah.
But I obviously didn't hate them enough because I went back to the dealership where I bought this Suburban and said, I don't like this anymore, and because I got it running good enough to take it back to them. And they said, well, how about this one? It's fuel injected. So that's when I got my Osage conversion Suburban. It had flex steel giant seats in it, had lights and wood that goes all the way to the back with the lights, and it had CB in it, and it was red interior and red and white with a custom paint. Nothing was stickers. It was all hand painted truck, and I took that to Canada and back, and took it to Florida and back, and hauling my mom's other son's shit everywhere.
Oh.
And, doing all that, and then I ended up having to get repoed because I couldn't pay for the truck, the Ranger, and the Suburban. And I had to sell my convertible. And that was a whole ordeal with the bank because the Suburban got hit in an accident, and I used a buddy of mine to just cash the check so I'd have the money. And then when it got repoed, they were really pissed about where the money is for the repair because the repair wasn't done. And it caused a lot of issues with the guy at the body shop. But that was one of the moments where I went and got help from Mom and Dad again to get out of that situation because I was on the way to jail if I didn't fix it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that got taken care of. And then I met Lisa while all this was going on, and we got married. And what the hell did I get after the Suburban? Well, the little Acura. There's a gold-colored Acura Integra. I think it was an 89. I bought that car at a used car lot, paid cash for it from money from the student loans that I got, which is how I got the car. and drove that car all over the place. One of the best, funnest cars I ever had, to be honest. Sold it to a friend of mine in college, and then, believe it or not, my little sister bought it back from him, and she drove it to college and used it. And that car was around. It lost fifth gear and fourth gear. And then finally, I took it up to the Shell station and said, "Anybody want one of these crotch rocket cars?" "Yeah, I do." I handed him the title and the keys and walked home. And that's exactly how it went down.
That's wild.
Then after we got the Acura, I helped the doctor up there, Dr. Sands, restore a 55 Chevy. And he had won a Corvette in a raffle. And he made a deal because I helped him with the restoration. He gave me a killer deal on this 69 triple black Corvette.
That was the one that you took to get married in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that.
So that triple black Corvette, he had rebuilt the motor, rebuilt the transmission. I took the rear end out, put a new leaf spring in it, and fixed it up. It was an old Corvette that was free to him, and I was only into him for like $8,000, which it's worth more than that. I mean, it wasn't a numbers matching car. It had a Mexico motor. It was a hodgepodge car. But the point is that nobody had any money in it to be upset that it wasn't worth the big money that it should have been worth, because it's fine. It's a Corvette. So we got married, and I had that Corvette and a Ford F-150 with a straight six in it that I bought from a guy using money from my wife's credit line from MBNA. Yeah. So yeah, it was working the money system pretty good, and I bought that Ford F-150 with the 300 straight six. The Corvette came along at the same time. The Ford F-150 with the 300 straight six, I put Offenhauser intake manifold with a four barrel, and then I went Clifford inline performance, got the manifold, got the headers, 3-into-1 dual headers, so I had true dual exhaust on this thing with the 4-barrel. And I bought the motor from Western Auto because I worked at Sears at the time, so I got 30% off the crate motor that we put in it. So I think I paid $600 for a fully warranted 3-year, 36,000 mile 306. And the part I remember about that job was stuffing bread in the pilot thing to get the bushing out. I'll never forget doing that. I thought it was the stupidest thing ever, and it worked. And that was another thing, going back to why I'm into cars, is because it's just, I've been around them so much and tried them so much. And that doctor, I did that engine swap at his place. He was a great guy. He's a good friend. I haven't seen him in a while, but he's a good friend of the family even after the fact. So we had the Ford F-150 and the Corvette. The Suburbans and all that are gone. Then I bought a Geostorm. It was teal green. It was a teal green Geostorm. I can't remember what year, 90 or 92, 93. It was a sports car looking thing. It had the pop-up headlights that weren't really pop-up headlights. It was like a cover that lifted a little. I mean, and at the time, I would put big speakers in it, and amps and crossovers, and had all kinds of EQs in the car, and I was into Belle Biv DeVoe and stuff like that. And I mean, that was when I during this whole time at college was going on, and the car was possessed. I'll never forget that. And you'd leave it sit out at night, and the headlights would come on and turn off 2 or 3 times at night. And it was just the headlights. They'd pop up and turn on. I took it to Jim Butler Chevrolet, and they stuck it in their bay with the cameras on it because they didn't believe it. And it did. And they could never figure out why the car's lights would come on and turn off all on their own.
That is wild.
So I only had that car for like 6 months. And I took it back to the dealership I bought it from. This is actually a funny story. So I took it back to the dealership I had actually bought it from. And I says, I don't like this car. I got to have something else. There's nothing wrong with it. No, it's just the same shape it was when you sold it to me. So they gave me like an 83 Ford. Wow, jeez. an 83 Ford Crown Vic, I guess. And it was silver with maroon interior. And they took the car, and so I'm driving this Crown Vic around, and it runs like shit. It has no power. It's got a V8, and I don't understand. One day I took the air cleaner off and looked, and it was like, what the hell is that? And it was this carburetor with plastic blocks in it that moved. It was called a variable Venturi carburetor, and I'm just like, I couldn't, anyway. So that car I only had for like 3 weeks until my next student loan check came. And that's when I bought the Acura Integra, was after that. That's okay. Right. I remember that, because I only had that car for about 3 or 4 weeks. And I screwed with that carburetor. It looks like a 2-barrel, had a black knob on the top in the middle, and these 2 black pieces of plastic. That was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life, even to this day. But so I forgot about that car until just now.
Maybe some things are better forgotten.
But I only had the thing a couple of weeks.
What'd you get after that?
I'm trying to think, because I got, okay, so we were going to get married, and I told Dr. Sands I couldn't afford the car. Even though it was a great deal, I gave him back the Corvette, and we went, and I bought my 97 Mercury Grand Marquis.
Oh, the blue one?
Yeah, it was blue, and that's what we raised Tyler up with, and getting in and out, and used it as a family car. And then I was doing the job as a sales rep, and I would travel because I didn't want to work at the depot with all those massive hours. I'd rather work Monday through Friday. And this job as a sales rep, I was only spending 1 or 2 nights out overnight a week. So that was far better than not seeing my kid but for 20 minutes on a Wednesday.
Yeah. Is that when you started listening to the sales tapes?
Well, that was actually part of it. Was when I quit the job as a salesman, because the job kind of disappeared. The Home Depot decided they did not want to have reps in the store, so basically if you weren't like a DeWalt or a brand name rep, direct guy, you couldn't be a service company servicing. So they were going to do all their own servicing internally, so our company dissolved. And within 2 weeks, I went from making, at the time, which was good money in the 30s, this is 2004, and being able to take care of the family and my 4-year-old son, and I had one on the way, which was Ryan, to nothing. So then I went and worked. I applied for a job to manage a Jiffy Lube. They hired me instantly, put me through a quick course. So they said it was supposed to be like a 6 or a 9-week training course or some shit. Well, within 3 weeks, they handed me the keys to the Lime Jiffy Lube, which is over here by Sam's in Firestone. Mm-hmm. Which now I just noticed is completely closed up and shut down. I don't know how long it's been that way, but
a little bit. I think since like COVID.
I have no idea. But that was the store I had, and I did that job. And honestly, this is how this all went down. So this guy would come in to get his oil changed in this fancy-ass car, and I'd say, what do you do for a living? Because I'd ask people, because I'm a car guy, and I'm trying to figure out how I can afford these cars, because I'm working this job, and I can't afford this stupid 97 Mercury I got. So he said, I'm a sales rep. All I do is drive around a car and do stuff. He says, if you want to become a sales rep, you need to do some training. And that's where it all started. And the guy worked for an independent pipe company. I'll never forget it. I can't remember his name, but that's who he worked for at the time. So I did some sales training and went to a couple of seminars for how to master the art of selling anything from Tom Hopkins, and figured that all out, and went and applied to a job as a sales rep for Kinko. What the hell was the name of that coffee company? Icon. Yeah. I applied for a job from them, and because I got a college degree and everything, I figured it'd work out, but I ended up going to work for Simpsons. And the first couple of years at Simpsons was awesome.
I heard some good stories at the beginning, and then it kind of went south.
I was responsible for the sale of all the brick mortar to Busch Stadium when it was being constructed. So that was a pretty huge deal.
That's a big opportunity.
And it was a historical, fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
The sad part is I don't really follow sports, nor do I care anything about them. But I was a part of the project, and that was a very big project to be a part of.
Another big one was down here in Arnold, wasn't it? The Arnold Commons.
Yeah, I sold 100,000 tons of sketchy, barely rock material to fill in underneath Lowe's and all those stores over there.
They haven't sank yet, so it's good enough for now.
You'd be amazed what we sent up there.
Was it like asphalt millings?
No, it was high deleterious material. So it was some green and clay and borderline almost not rock, shale. When it gets wet, it expands, so it's has high plasticity is the technical term for it,
which is not desirable when you want to put a building on.
But there was so much of it.
It was so far. I guess if you put it low enough,
because they put, I think, 4 or 5 feet of something that was good over top of it all.
Yeah.
But there was a massive hole they were filling up. Yeah. They had, let's put it this way, there were so many trucks going from the bottom of the hill where Simpson's was up to the top of the hill where Lowe's was.
This is the one off 141?
Right.
Yeah.
So the trucks, the drivers would not see another vehicle in front of them all day than the one that was there. So they'd come in, get loaded, go out, and the scale tickets, they didn't even stop to get scale tickets. They kept them until the end of the day. So they would literally, it looked like a giant caterpillar because they come onto the site, dump, unload, and then one behind them would dump and unload, and they had D9 dozers. They had five D9 or D10 dozers. They had like 14-foot blades on them.
Yeah. And
these dump trucks would literally come in with way over the legal limit of loads that were allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were pumping 104, 105,000.
Holy cow. And 80,000 is like the max.
Well, that's also right? 80,000 with a bunch of axles.
Yeah.
Because the tandem axle dump truck's only rated to 40.
Oh, that's
and the tandems were hauling about 70 to 80, and the quads were hauling 80 to 100.
That's scary. Yeah.
So, and it just went on for weeks and weeks.
It was like a dump truck centipede.
Yeah, I mean, and it was. I had a lot of enjoyable times at Simpson's, but I don't really have anything nice to say because they really took advantage of me. I had an opportunity to go to work for a company called Tenuous Brickworks, which is an outfit in Illinois that does bricklaying, and the owner and I talked. We'd worked up a deal. He was going to pay me $20,000 more a year than what I was making at Simpson's and give me a brand new F-350 quad cab pickup.
And at the time, you're in a 1500 Ram?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not that the vehicle makes any difference.
No, but just a comparison, a 350 versus 150.
Was, and I would be a site manager, for instance, and a quality control assurance guy, and also help do bids and get more work. So I was a dual role because I'm really good at some stuff and wasn't good at other. And I told him, I said, if you teach me how to do this stuff, I can do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm selling brick mortar to you, aren't I? I should be able to sell your service to somebody else.
Yeah.
So I went back to Simpson's and told them I'm quitting and I'm leaving. This is like after I'd been there for 2.5 years. And they gave me this, we really don't want you to go. You're so valuable to our company, and trust me, we will take care of you. Just hang in there with us. And I believed them, and it was not that case at all. I mean, it got to the point, I went 3 years without a raise, and then I found out that all the Simpsons gave themselves raises.
Yeah,
not me.
That'll burn your britches.
And then I did without Christmas bonuses, even though the Christmas bonus in their eyes was $400, which I learned is not really a Christmas bonus in the modern world. I didn't know any better. I was very naive. But I felt dedicated. I felt I was part of the family. I thought I was doing the family thing, and they were going to eventually take care of me, which didn't happen.
It got worse, didn't it?
It got way worse.
Yeah. But what the vehicle we drive now, wasn't that you're kind of breaking out from that?
Yeah, the brown Ram.
Mm-hmm.
They put me in a Chevy utility vehicle with didn't even have an AM radio. It had roll up windows, and I don't know how they found one. That was a 2010 or 11 vehicle that didn't have that stuff, but they did. And I was actually mad because I'd been working there. I've scored huge jobs. I've done all my parts and staying with them. And they're like, well, with this economy, 2008, we haven't recovered. And that was the story they blamed everything on, was the economy. And that. But I come to find out they had purchased a whole giant-ass quarry down in Barnhart. And they never had me geared to sell the limestone out of there. In fact, they had the guy that tried to take my job from me a couple years prior. They hired him. And he took my job from me. So instead of being a rock guy, they fired the asphalt guy and told me I'm asphalt. And it wasn't an option. It was a non-optional function. And every time I raised questions about something, they said, you're free white and 21. You can go wherever the hell you want to go. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. And they said that because they had me. I had a wife at home, taking care of 3 kids, and I couldn't literally go anywhere.
Yeah.
And make enough money to keep living the way we are. Which, even though the most money I ever made at this place was $50,000, I couldn't go somewhere else and get $50,000.
Yeah, because you got to build.
Even
up
though the
to
job that I was doing, from all the studies I did on job salary stuff I seen on the internet, I should have been making 75 to 100 for the sales numbers I had, and especially in a metropolitan area like St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And they had add insult to injury. The salesman that worked at another asphalt company, when I left, they hired him. And I found out from a family member they had to pay him $85,000 a year to start, which is $35,000 more than what they were paying me. And all I asked for when I left was another $20,000, and they wouldn't give it to me. And the owner of the company, Mark Simpson, through his son, made it clear that nobody that works for them tells them what to pay.
Oh.
And for that very reason, you can get on the hell out of here.
Yeah, I would have left too. I haven't had anything that bad, but that's.
Oh, it's a lot more worse than I'm even telling you about right now. I mean, there was some things that happened in that company to me and with me that any other person would have went to a lawyer and could have sued the hell out of them.
Yeah.
I was physically assaulted by one of the co-owners. Yeah. He screamed and berated me for almost 2 hours, left, came back, and did it again.
How did you not just beat his ass?
And the funny thing is, at the time that this was going on, I was working out every day for an hour and a half at the gym. Every day but Sunday.
Well, we've gone over the fact you're very strong.
And this guy is, no offense, but about your size.
Well, yeah, that's no contest. That would have been like one swoop.
I guess it was me being loyal to the family, and I just took it.
Yeah.
And I mean, and some of that stuff, when things like that happened, I'd come home pissed and mad and yell at my kids and yell at my wife, and I wasn't anything like I should have been. And just one day when I told them I want some time off to spend with my dad before he dies, they said, no, you deal with it. You got to come here and work. And there was nothing going on. There were no jobs bidding. There was no reason.
Did you go into work or did you say F them?
Well, to be honest, I sat down on the deck with my wife on the Sunday before, and I said, they're not going to let me spend time with my dad before he goes. And that's it. And Lisa had been working at this Centene place for about 2 years, and she'd just gotten a raise. So she was damn near making what I was making. And we made the decision, I'm just going to quit.
Yeah.
Without having a job. I said, I can't take it anymore. And I'm becoming an ass. And I've seen it Now she said, "You've been an ass a long ass time."
It's terrible when you know it and you just can't help it. Like you're like, why am I doing this? And because I know I come home and I'll be upset with other stuff, and that's why I've quit jobs before. And you can see what you've become, and you don't like it, but yet at the same time you don't know of the way out. You can't see the way out yet.
I've never quit anything. I've been fired before, but I've never quit anything. And it's just, and after being there for almost 13 years, I got hired in 04 and it's 2016.
Mm-hmm. The Rams of 2017. So
whatever, I don't know. I think I left in 2016. I don't even remember anymore, but seriously, this is how this went. And my wife will corroborate all this, because it was just like, we decided I'm going to quit on Sunday. And I says, I'm not an internet guy. I says, get the internet and see if there's any jobs. So she goes on Indeed and puts my resume in that I'd had from a long time ago, the same information, because I've been at the job so long, it wasn't anything different. And then it pulled up a bunch of jobs, and she's going down this thing and said, this is like what you used to do before you went to Simpsons. I said, apply. Well, here's another one. I said, apply to that one too. And she's finding all these jobs like what I used to do.
Which was what?
Traveling, doing service work in stores, taking care of products. Mm-hmm. Which you drive and you go in and do some service work and go on, and the pay is good. There's a lot of travel, but I'm looking at her thinking my kids are older. They're all going to be driving soon, and I'm not going to miss out on anything if I get the right job. I'm not going to take a job where I'm gone all week.
Yeah. And you knew it didn't hurt to apply for anything.
And at that point, we had no money in savings, but we couldn't go on anymore like we were.
Yeah, it was gonna get worse fast.
So we had no car payments. Well, I had my truck car payment, which is the brown one that started this conversation.
Yep.
And they got really mad when I bought that truck, because going back again to answer that question, I bought that truck because I didn't want to drive that Chevy home. I got tired of it. Mm-hmm. And they installed a tracker, which was new at the time.
Yeah, the GPS.
Track where I'm driving and where I'm going.
How fast
and
you're
accused
going.
me of doing a bunch of shit I never did, and then could never show me where it says that I did this.
Yeah.
They were saying, you spent 3.5 hours sitting at a damn cemetery at JB. No. I went to JB because they were doing the vaults, and I left. You were there for 3.5 hours, and what were you doing? And then this is the same guy that went space nuts on me in the past, and he's having his own anger issues that he takes out on me. I was a whipping post for them people, because they was surrounded by all Simpson. I was one of the few non-Simpsons that was in a quasi-leadership role.
Yeah.
But that's fine. So that truck set him off, and I was trying to tell him, I have ability and can do stuff. You don't control me and you don't own me, without coming out and saying that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go back to where I was just talking. Applying to these jobs, we decided that, it's probably going to be better. I can pick and choose what I do. I've done it before, so I'll know what I don't like and what I like from what happened, even though it was 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
I can still remember that. So, unbelievably, I walk in on Monday, tell Tom Simpson, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. You got a job lined up? No. Well, that's pretty stupid, don't you think? And he starts lecturing me like I'm one of his kids, which he doesn't have a kid because he never made a kid. He's got a kid that he married into. And he started lecturing. I said, look, Tom, you don't care about me anymore. Nobody does. So I'm leaving. I can't take working here anymore. And you're going to be sorry. Once you say this, you can't come back. And I'm like,
great.
No,
good.
No. I mean, he was, and I could have done and said so many things to release that anger, but I quietly said this, and I got up and I left. Well, here's the one of the divine intervention, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but Tuesday, mid-morning, Lisa says, because we used her phone, because I couldn't use my phone because it was a company phone. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a private phone. I just used my work phone. So they're calling her on her cell phone. She calls me and says, this place in Minnesota's called 3 times. three times. You want to call them? So I got the number and I called him and I talked to this guy. He says, you got a couple minutes? Yeah, hell yeah, I got a couple minutes. What you want to talk about? I mean, it was like an instant connection. And we talked on the phone for like an hour.
Wow.
And he says, we're going to fly you up here for an interview. Can you come this week? Sure. When you want me there? Thursday. Go ahead and get your stuff lined up to go, and you do the tickets, and we'll reimburse you. And I'm like, oh, I don't really have any money. I'll figure this out. So I walked in Wednesday and said, I got to go to a job interview on Thursday. I won't be here. Well, if you walk out that door, that's it. I said, well, yeah, okay. I'm walking out the door.
Yeah.
I'm just a courtesy.
Yeah.
To tell you I'm not going to be around Thursday, but I'll be back Friday. So it's a one-day thing. And I completely ignored them and went about my business. And they didn't do a damn thing. I stayed there to the end of the 2 weeks. But I went up there and interviewed, talked to the founder of the company, the owner of the company, all the people that were up there. And I drove because I couldn't afford to fly.
That's not surprising.
That's right. I drove that brown truck up there. And when I was up there at the interview, I think that truck may have helped me get the job. Because they said none of our reps except for one has a truck. This is cool. And he says, what's them plates mean? And the one guy, I didn't answer. The guy, they're all out. We're standing out in the parking lot shooting the shit, talking. I wasn't smoking a cigar at the time. I wasn't there. But and we're standing around my truck, and this is a beautiful truck. This color is amazing. And I said, yeah, it's just, I had to drive quite a far distance to get this. I had to go from St. Louis to Watseka and back. He said, you drove all the way to get the truck? I said, it's not that far. It was a fun drive. And may have been part of the conversation, but then when they seen the plates, you're like, what's them for? And one of the other guys, the CFO of the company, looks at him and says, that's a ticket getter outer. What do you mean? Do you think a cop's going to give a combat vet a ticket? And I'm just standing there smiling. Hey, we like you. That's what they said. And I said, I'm not going to argue with this theory. That's partly why they're there.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
And honestly, they called me back Friday and they said, we think we're going to make you an offer. Don't do anything. Give us till next week, Tuesday, please. And I'm like, oh, I'm not sure how all this hiring shit works, but that don't sound normal.
Yeah.
I've just been working at the same company the last 12 or something years, and I'm really out of practice with this, but I asked my wife, I says, what do you think this means? I don't know. Let's wait till Tuesday. I think that's all right. Well, they sent me an email Tuesday and offered me more money than I was making at Simpsons, because I told them I was making more than I'm making at Simpsons. Yeah. And it came with mileage and expenses paid, and I've been there ever since.
Really?
And my kids compare it to Simpson Dad and Today Dad.
I have heard them say that.
So the Simpson Dad was a really mean, mad dad.
Yeah.
Compared to the dad that they have now. And I think it's good in a way that they've done that.
I would agree.
And I'm not looking at as a negative. Maybe that was part of the reason I went through all that crap. Because I got 3 boys, and they're all very impressionable. Mm-hmm. And they may have learned lessons I didn't know they were learning.
Oh, for sure. I guarantee.
So I look at that. Everything that's happened to me, it sucked, but I have no problem with any of it.
And I think there's exponential growth through struggle of any kind. Even when, it's your dad going through a struggle, you're going to become better from it. So I think it probably fared your family pretty well. As rough as it was.
I don't know about all that, but I just, it it. I'm. I haven't been upset or angry except for stupid shit ever since I've left.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get angry at my job. It's impossible. Even when the car breaks down and I'm sitting on the side of the road because the fuel gauge didn't read right, and it was the fuel gauge, it wasn't me.
I got that phone call. Or when the jerks at the store don't help out and you break your foot.
Yeah, I was in that store, and that's funny you bring that up. So I go in the store, and everybody in that place. I mean, I walked in the door, and the gatekeeper's like, "He's back!" And next thing I know, there's sorry about the loud, but next thing I know, there's like 7 or 8 people at the counter going, "Are you okay? What happened? Did you broke your foot?" I said, "Yeah. You want to see a picture?" "No, we do not want to see a picture."
We don't want to get sued.
No, I don't think that was any of it because the way our company's set up, I'm not an employee of Menards, but my company employee work comp treats the situation as if so Menards has no culpability whatsoever with me in the store at all. Now, if Tyler's with me and we're in the store, they have culpability over him because he doesn't work, which is why you're not supposed to bring your kids to work with you. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So there's everything was done as it should have been done,
Right.
and nobody had anything occur that shouldn't have occurred.
Yeah, it was all by the books.
Everything
Yeah.
was totally by the books, and I'm glad that I went that way. And whatever happens down the road happens. But I know I did everything I was supposed to.
Yeah.
But the department manager, who wasn't there when I was there, he came in, he seen me, and he's wasn't feeling good, and I'm talking to him, and he says, "Did you hurt yourself when you were here last?" I said, "Do you want to hear about that?" "Yeah, tell me about that." I said, "Do you want to see a picture of my foot?" "Yeah." So I pull out the picture, and he's like, and I got queasy, and I'm looking at him, it's just a foot with some broken bones, man. What's up? And he's like, "What happened?" And he started looking like he was going to barf.
Ooh.
And I'm explaining to him, me and your assistant were standing here, and I'm actually there. And I thought she was going to help me lift the shelf off, and I thought wrong. We didn't really communicate. It's my fault. I shouldn't have assumed anything. Trying to deflect blame off of her because it's really not her fault. We didn't say,
Yeah.
"Will you help me take this shelf off?" I made an assumption, well, let's get this moved. And that means let's, like you and me,
Yeah.
get...
And
their communication wasn't there. So it's no big deal, and it broke my foot. And I said, "That's why the handle on that sump pump's bent." He said, "That's what's landed on you?" I said, "Yeah, it flipped off the shelf, smashed the handle flat, and landed on my foot." "Did it hurt?" "A little." I finished service in the store, and I finished doing this set because the guy that did it the first time was really mad because I said it was wrong. And he said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." He kept telling me it was corporate's fault that it was set wrong. But corporate said the height is supposed to be 26 inches, and he didn't set it at 26 inches. And I don't know how he got to where corporate's fault for him not setting it to the right height. So I told him, let's just fix it. I can't leave here without it being fixed. And he was clocking out to go to lunch or something. It was all hacked off, and he came over, and he was less than helpful, and then it got done.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, he left and went home. The manager did. Because he was sick.
Yeah.
But it's all good. I mean, like I said, the job I do now is... It's absolutely zero stress. If something's wrong, you just send an email in, tell them it's wrong, and you fix it, and you move on. I mean, you're not going to drive out someplace and put an aerator on a faucet display. You're going to wait till the next time you're there, and it just is what it is.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of nice. I mean, it's nice that you get sometimes it's nice to have time alone from family and things. You can kind of get some thoughts out, but I think when the way you like driving and the way you like cars, I mean, you've got a 70 Continental that you bought because it was in great shape, and you like driving good cars, and you get, how many miles have you put on that?
I think about 87 or 90, and over the 2 summers I used it.
That's 1,000. Like
Yeah,
90,000 miles in 2 summers.
I bought it with 42, and I think it's got a, I don't know, like 122 on it now or something. 132 on it. And I used it to drive the 800 to 1,200, and then the Kansas to Garden City is the 1,800-mile week. I used it everywhere I went.
Yeah, and we just went out and ran it, and it's smooth as butter, runs like a dream.
Well, getting back to the car thing, so the 97 Grand Marquis was the last one we talked about.
And you ended up didn't you have like a little programmer tuner on it?
Well, it was kind of new. So this company called Diablo.
Yeah, they're still around.
I contacted them, and they were just starting out as a company. And I said, is there anything you can do to tune? Can I get a tuner chip for my Grand Marquis? It's just like a Mustang, but it's a Grand Marquis. They didn't know. They said, well, send us your unit. So I took the computer out of my car and sent it to them. And I said, make this thing run like a Cobra Mustang. And shift and do like a Cobra Mustang, and the rev limiter off or whatever. And I don't know, 6-8 weeks later, they sent the module. Yeah, I was without the car that long, but it was not really a big deal, because Lisa had her Escort. It was a little green Escort that she had during this time, and she totaled that out when somebody said to go ahead, and she went and got hit. She learned that lesson.
That's a dangerous time.
And she was pregnant with Ryan at the time.
Oh, that had to be scary.
Yeah, it's over and everything worked out fine.
Yeah.
But
maybe that's why he's so big.
I don't know about that. But yeah, we got the chip, and then I thought I did my own transmission shift kit in my garage that came with a DVD, and I watched the DVD and where to put the spring and where you put the ball and take the white spring out, put the pink spring in, and I mean all this stuff, and I followed all that, and I put it all in there, and the shit worked, and I'm thinking, I can change my own ring and pinion gear too. I'm going to do that. Well, that was a mistake. I went to put 373 gears in, and I messed it all up, and a tow truck had to come and get it, took it to the shop, and he finished putting it together. It is what it is. I thought I had the ability, but I didn't, because you need a special tool to measure backlash, and I didn't have that, and
you need to know.
Didn't have the financial means to get the stuff to do it anyway, even if I wanted to. There just wasn't money there for that.
So at this point, you had a tuned-up engine, tuned-up automatic transmission, and now you had a positive rear end, and the car was fun?
Well, I beat every single Mustang and Camaro I went up against back then.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the funnest time I had, because at the time I had this car, I worked at Union Planters Bank. And we go over to the Lindbergh and Watson branch, which is where headquarters was, and have our, regional meetings. So I'd carpool for all the people down in Arnold that ran banks. So we'd each take turns picking up each other and driving up from Arnold up to the thing. So I had there was like 4 of us total, and all 4 of these guys in my Grand Marquis. And we're done, and we're coming back, ready to go down to Arnold, and I'm sitting there at the overpass by Sunset Ford on Highway 55 waiting for the light to turn. And they said, does this thing burn rubber? Oh, yeah. You want to do that? And the windows are up, the air conditioner's on, we're all just sitting there, and I light it up, and I didn't let off, and it literally filled the whole entire, all 6 lanes across. Then the smoke started coming in the trunk, coming up around the seats, and they're like, Jesus, this is awesome. And then I let off the gas, and I kept it, and we were sliding sideways like this, and the trail on the road was amazing. It was just, it was like super thick for like 3 or 4 feet, then it just started squiggling, and off I went. And the intersection, we were looking on the highway as we were on the 55. The smoke was still just because there was no wind.
Oh, goodness.
And I put 290,000 miles on that car. And then when Kyle was coming along, we decided we need a minivan.
Oh, you got that great quality Ford Freestar.
Right. And it was silver. And I bought it at Enterprise, and that was a necessity item. I mean, if you have babies, you got to have a minivan.
That's why I drive a minivan.
But when you don't need it anymore, it's time to go.
Yep.
My wife couldn't be more excited when we traded that minivan in on her 2010 Honda Accord, because that was a dream car for both of us.
Yeah.
She had been working at Centene for a while in 2010, and I was doing the Simpson thing as usual, and we could never get approved to buy a Honda.
Because of past money.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I had a bankruptcy, and amongst all my issues that I went through, I mentioned, Lisa's credit wasn't any good because of me either. So it was a huge monumental task. We went through First Community Credit Union, and they gave us approval on the loan for 6 years, and we paid it off in 5. So it was absolutely amazing. And then that's when my financial situation started to turn around, when I started paying more attention and thinking ahead a little better instead of thinking for the right now moment, which is what I did the whole time I was young.
And I mean, that's one thing that nobody really ever tells you. At least nobody ever really told me. They're like, oh yeah, think about retirement. But beyond that, like, okay, I think about retirement. Now what? What do I do with that? You know, and like we've had conversations about, you know, what to do, why to do it, and, you know, struggles, what not to do really, and learning from that. And you've shared your experiences, and it's helped me. You know, you kind of taught me the money shuffle with like 0 interest credit cards and how you can basically get money for free for, you know, basically free loans. And, you know, that's helped us get where we're at right now. And, you know, that's part of the reason that we, you know, like you said, Jennifer was so happy to get rid of that minivan and get out of it. And now she drives a nice truck that she didn't know had, you know, a remote starter. And now she's like, I hear the truck start every morning. And I'm like, oh, yep, she's getting ready to leave for work. And it's been great. And, you know, even more so, I'm glad that you have somewhere to access your cars that brings our families closer. I get to see your kids. And I mean, heck, me and Ryan have spent, I don't know, 10, 12 hours together in the last month driving to go pick up Miatas for me or not pick up Miatas depending on the condition. And, you know, that's just great time. And like seeing the kids out in the shop playing, you know, just goofing off, roughhousing in the little training room area with the medicine balls and the rock climbing wall. It's great. Like, you know, there's
they like coming down here, especially when Tyler's around, and it can be the 3 of them. But
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's why I've gone through everything. Not that their happiness and joy right now is because of that, but I wanted to do as much as I raising of my kid as I possibly could with my wife raising it. I mean, I understand people's situations are different, and we used daycare for a while when Ryan or Tyler was really little, and we used it again with Ryan, because we had to, because of the work situation. But
yeah,
we did everything we could as a married couple to be with them more than non-family members were with them.
Right. And I think that's very important as they grow up and for them. And, you know, like you said, there's a Simpson dad and a non-Simpson dad. And the fact that they had that experience with both is better than them not having either experience at any stage of life.
Just Simpson dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that whole situation with the Simpsons, it's almost like a frog in a pot, and the water keeps raising to a point where it's going to boil, and the frog doesn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
That was almost the situation. I mean, it was the situation, and I had a light come on and say, "Holy shit, you're about to boil."
So, is there any advice you'd give to like your kids or anybody else? You know, when if somebody might, what are some signs to look for before you get in that
Well,
situation?
here's the thing. I seen the signs. I knew what was going on.
It was the
But
loyalty.
because of the situation with the economy and the availability of jobs and the risk that if I did quit and couldn't find a job, I would lose my house because my wife didn't make enough money to support what we were doing.
Yeah.
So in a lot of those situations, I just dealt with it, which is where Simpson Dad came from.
You were in, my one friend calls it
I couldn't leave.
golden handcuffs.
Well, I've never heard of that term, but that's a very excellent way to describe that situation. But I was loyal to a fault to the company, would do any. I even as a salesman who's supposed to be out selling product, I would go help fix conveyor belts when they'd break. I'd help work on the burner when the burner's not working right. I'd help go in the bag house and clean out the bags because nobody else would come help. I mean, shit that salesmen would never, ever, ever, ever do.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't help, the Simpsons didn't care. And if I lost a job, it's my fault. And I never could understand why it could be my fault when I'm the salesman and I'm not a repairman.
It's not your
and
responsibility.
The plant's broke.
Yeah.
But every responsibility is my responsibility because I never got a job description. My job description was whatever they described to me the day they described it.
And it would change day to day, and yeah.
But at that point, I did it for 12 years. Going on 13, I didn't want to run the risk of being in a situation where I'd lose my house or have money problems again, like I created for myself early in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the decision to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I could have left probably, but at the time between 2007 and 2010, 11, I was grilled into thinking that there's no jobs for me. There's nowhere for me to go. And it's partly because they were telling me this.
Yeah.
It was almost like the kidnap victim is now getting
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah.
whatever.
Well, let's lighten it up a little bit here. There's one story that sticks into my head at a Christmas morning gathering, and it involves a shift knob for a golf ball or something.
I don't know what that was. A golf ball retrieval.
Is that what it was?
It screws on the end of a stick.
Yeah. And it's rubber with like a threaded part on one end, screws on, like you said, it's a retriever, and on a golf ball retriever, and on the other end is a suction cup that would suction to a golf ball. And you know, you're a funny guy. I've cried laughing many times around you, and this was definitely one of those times. You wanted to be a unicorn, and you succeeded. You took that golf ball suction right to the forehead, and then you took an empty wrapping paper roll, stuck it on there. That's right?
I guess.
And it was on there for a fair bit of time, probably too long, because by the time you took it off, there was a perfect purple circle on your forehead. I don't know how long it was there for, but it was hilarious.
It stopped looking like a hickey and started looking like a purple tattoo. And the funny thing is, the perceptionally funny thing is that I was a manager at a Union Planters bank.
Is that your first experience with makeup?
And I don't know exactly how I handled that at that point. I don't know if I did makeup or just went in, and I don't know, but I had to deal with that purple mark for like 3 weeks at the bank, managing the bank, and I wear a crew cut, so there wasn't no hair covering it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that was almost as stupid as buying a car every 6 months or so, but not quite.
It had less long-lasting repercussions.
Yeah.
What else? You did something in the Army. You got an award for it, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of things that went on in the military.
Well, open up that photo book and pull out some memory lanes here.
Well, we couldn't find that one. This is all the pictures of before I went over there.
When were you back? When did we make the foxhole in the backyard? Well, I say we, but you. Because
I think
young.
I came home on leave from Korea, and we did that in 1988.
No, it had to be after that because I wasn't born till 89. And I remember seeing pictures. I was probably like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. So that would be 90. It would have been like 95-ish, somewhere in there.
No, it couldn't have been because I got out in 92.
It was probably after you were out.
And it must have been while I was going to college. So yeah, don't you remember I used to stay at your house during the summers?
Vaguely. I don't remember much from being a kid for some reason.
Yeah, I stayed at the house in the basement during the summer because there was no room at my mom and dad's house because of Jane and the sewing room. I don't remember. There was a lot of things going on at that time. It wasn't a very good time for me either. But yeah. I tried to make the best out of it and have fun and doing stuff. But
yeah, you came over and dug this foxhole in I swear it was like a minute and a half, and it was big enough for you and me to both crouch down in. And then, you took the dirt. Maybe it was because you took the dirt and made the berm, so it was, essentially a deeper hole than it actually was. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean that's how you dig a foxhole. You set your perimeter, start to dig, establish your berm with the spoils. Once the berm is established, you hide the remaining material to get it to where the top of the berm is to the top of your head when you're standing on the base of the foxhole. I don't think we went that far.
No, we didn't. Well, I was probably standing. You were probably kneeling or something.
But yeah, that was fun. So.
That was like a little backpack shovel, little spade shovel.
Yeah, it's the E-tool. Is what it's called in the military. It's a shovel. It's an axe. It's a thing that holds you up while you take a shit. It was all kinds of things.
It was yeah. What was the award you got? Something for hot water, hot showers?
Well, I was in the Stars and Stripes written up, and I got what they call an Army Commendation Medal, which is not the lowest. It's far from the highest. It's like the third highest up award for taking a decontamination device that made steam to decontaminate vehicles with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to regulate the temperature to where it could get down to like 95 to 100 degrees by adjusting the valve.
So how did it work for like steam cleaning or sanitizing?
So essentially it's a giant boiler. You know how you get these coffee pots, the commercial Bund coffee pots, where the water runs through a copper tube and the heat element heats up the water as it goes through the copper tube.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing ran on diesel, Jet A1, JP8, whatever you could put in it.
Right.
And it basically was a ginormous coffee pot.
Okay. So it had a bunch of coils that water went through.
It's in
and
a tank that's
coils.
like 3 foot tall and 2.5 feet around. And the coils go in the tank and the fire turns on and it blows like a water heater over the coils.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more like a tankless water heater setup as it would be today.
Yeah.
Which is basically what it was. It was a giant tankless water heater.
Hot enough to get water to steam.
So you'd have 2 high pressure 1.25 inch hoses with spray wands on it to decontaminate.
Mm-hmm.
And it would make steam, and you could decontaminate continuously as long as you kept it fed with fuel.
Jeez. So did you regulate the fuel is what you did?
Well, I regulated the valve on the water pressure, water coming out,
mm-hmm.
and then turned the temperature down, and then also added another line to cover over it after it discharged of cold. So instead of having one water source, there was 2 water sources.
One was hot, one was cold.
Correct, and they had a valve on each one that you could
so it's basically like a modern shower.
I guess I didn't even ever think of it like that till you just said that.
Yeah, think about what you just said.
It's like a single handle. I'd never even thought of that.
It's a tankless hot water heater that also has cold water, and then you're the mixing valve.
I didn't ever make that connection.
You created that way back when.
Anyway,
out in the fields.
I wanted to take the only other way to get a shower was your buddy pour bottled water on you while you stand in the back of a truck.
Yeah.
And that's literally the only way women and men and whoever could get a shower. Mm-hmm. They had shower buckets where it was a canvas bucket with a shower head on the bottom, and you'd hang the canvas bucket up on a tripod or something, and you'd turn the shower head. But there was 400,000 people out there, or 200, however many damn people out there, and they wasn't enough of them for everybody. Yeah. And then they'd get broke and get sand in them, and once you get sand in that head, it's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be the only option was to have your buddy pour water on you while you shower, and then you take turns.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And I'm sitting here thinking, I can make this machine work. And later on, it actually, I was able to get shower wands that were from the company that made the machine. Mm-hmm. They sent them out because they apparently had a shower kit for it, and I didn't realize it. Because initially we drilled pipes and drilled holes.
Yeah, for your wands.
And put them up with fence posts. You know, the green T-posts?
Yeah.
We'd take the green T-post, put them over the pallets in a tent
to
make a men and a women's shower. And instead of the two hoses going to the wands, one went to the girls and one went to the guys.
Yeah.
And
so it was like a drip shower, basically?
No, it was a full-on shower.
Oh, wow.
Like the high-pressure water. I mean, it was not only heating the water, but it pressurized it as well. Okay. So it'd come in the system, pressurize the water, and send it out. And then they even got more creative. And after I did the initial design, I talked to my company commander. I says, we need to do something with shaving. We could hook this up to I don't have any of the pictures of that because I don't have that book. But the carpenter people made a shaving station with plates of stainless instead of mirrors.
Yeah.
And they cut little holes and put like stainless steel bowls from the Medic company. Mm-hmm. So there was like 5 on each side, and then there was a spigot you could turn to turn the water on and off. And you could literally sit there, turn the water on, rinse your razor out, turn your water on, rinse your razor out, and shave. And we put it all under camouflage netting and concertina wire because that's how you had to do everything.
Light, yeah.
So we had shaving stations, hot water, and I mean, they were bringing people in from all over to come shower at my setup. I mean, all over.
That's cool.
I mean, outside of our division even, there was British. I remember when English people came through to get a shower. I mean, you gotta understand. I mean, finding a place to take a dump is easy. The hard part's getting a shower and getting clean.
Yeah.
You know, you can take a crap in a 55-gallon barrel. That's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But getting the act of cleaning yourself, so it was a huge deal. And then people came by and seen how I did, and they replicated what I did throughout the theater.
Cool. Satisfaction from that?
Well, they let me go to college on their dime. I consider that pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because I got that green to gold scholarship, and I don't think they gave it to me because I was super smart or good looking. Because speaking of which, I had to take that ACT test like 4 or 5 times to get a 21 to go.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do well on that test.
Ryan took his, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I didn't like studying for it. And I'm not good at taking tests because I'm a slow reader. I don't comprehend well, so I have to read a bunch because I just get distracted. I'll read the words or I'll see the words, but they don't register in my head. But there was another story you told me about that was, I think, was it a deuce and a half or a Humvee got stuck? All right, before we get to the tank story, the stuck vehicle story, we took a little break, and I looked through some pictures, and this is where we pick up on, pick up at, pick up stuff.
Yeah, all those, we landed in October 21st was when we landed. And those were basically September to November. We were sitting there waiting to go to war. So you're literally just sitting there. So sometimes they'd let us go to these market bazaars,
Yeah.
just to give us something to do. It was just, there was 3 times we were able to do something outside of our compound. And that was a picture of one of them. We got to try and ride camels, which I never did. I didn't want to get on one of them fucking things. They kiss my ass.
Yeah, I didn't expect to see a camel when I started flipping through here.
But they're all over. They roam free.
Really?
Yeah, there's no.
They just live there?
Yeah, they roam free. I mean, they're owned.
Yeah.
Typically, like cattle ranchers in Texas, or whatever. But the Bedouins are a real thing. They're owned by Bedouin. But they had places where they were selling carpet and
there's a lot of rugs there.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I don't know jack shit about a rug. Didn't want a rug. Didn't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Some people were, I mean, it was trying to give something for everybody.
That looks like a chick.
Oh yeah.
I didn't expect to see.
Yeah, there's lots of them.
What are them little cups of beer looking? Is that what that is?
Let me see. There's absolutely no alcohol allowed in the entire country. At all. It's completely banned, abolished. There's no...
Yeah.
And the military couldn't bring any alcohol in at all. The only thing they let us get away with was O'Doul's, which was new, and then there was another version from the other brewing company of the same thing. I think that's that damn tea. I wouldn't try it. And see, this is they're trying to sample, and as you go through here and look, I mean, people were getting the clothes of the natives and trying to dress up and try out being a Saudi.
Oh wow, yeah, they were.
So, and I did it too. I got an outfit still at home in my closet of a complete male outfit from top to bottom with the tablecloth on the head and the sheet. And sandals. I got the whole thing. I got one for a woman too that wraps her up. All you can see is her eyelids. I thought it'd be cool for Halloween sometime.
Yeah. So did you take these pictures?
I probably did. I mean, I would think I took most of them because I'm not in them. Because
yeah,
and I was just trying to get a sense of what it is to be in the desert. I mean, not all of them were at that show.
So is that a water truck or a fuel truck? It's got a blue stripe going down the side there.
Oh, that's diesel. I never did tell you about that story. That was a weird one.
Yeah, what happened?
I can't keep looking through there. So when we went to go up into Iraq and city of Kuwait, we had a big ass convoy, and our battalion was a support battalion, which meant that every company supported the division. So Alpha Company was a medical company, had the ambulances and the medevac and the nurses and the doctors and all that crap. And then Bravo Company was, I think, for motor pool. Charlie Company was ordnance. Delta Company was engineering. Echo was we went all the way to Foxtrot.
Okay, that was going to be my next question: is how far?
So our battalion, support battalion, 724 support battalion, went from Alpha Company to Foxtrot Company, and so one of those is fueling and support. So I was in headquarters company HHD. For the 724 support battalion. And I don't know what you're looking at, but...
Nothing bad. Just a feller.
Yeah. So, we were trying to figure out what vehicles we were going to drive. So we commandeered civilian vehicles as well because we're going up into Baghdad, not to Baghdad, but we're going to go on our march through the army after everything's settled to support and clean and clear and do all this. So they put me in a 10,000 gallon.
Oh, hang on 1 second. Hey, Mom.
Hey, I'm on my way to your place.
Cool. I'll see you in a little bit. Okay. Thanks. Bye. Okay.
They put me in a fuel tanker truck to drive to Iraq because, I mean, they needed drivers to drive the vehicles with fuel.
Was this a baffled truck?
I have no idea. But I got in this Mercedes, same color cab, gray and red fenders, but it had a tanker trailer on it with like 8 dualies on each side. So it was like 8 wheels on this side, 8 wheels on this side, and it was 10,500 gallons of diesel.
Goodness.
It was like a 9 or 10 foot tall tank. It was just massive. And there was a buddy of mine in front of me that was driving a similar truck, but it was a different brand. I don't know. His had some kind of fucking symbol on the dash. I don't know what kind it was.
Yeah.
And I was in the Mercedes. And the Mercedes shift pattern, I still to this day don't understand
what it was.
Because it starts out over here in the back, then it comes over here, then it goes up here. So it was like dump, 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 or something. It was... Well, I didn't get that far to learn how it worked because all the roads over there were no paved roads where we were going.
It's all these pictures, like that's one thing that I'm still not used to seeing when I go travel places is I'm used to growing up and seeing trees and hills, but all these pictures, it's just like nothing, just sand.
That's exactly what it was. I would show you some maps someday, I think I told you.
Oh, yeah.
So... the roads were made by putting diesel on them. So they'd have these mine clearing tanks come through and clear the mine and kick those out. And then they'd have a tanker truck that they stuck holes in the hose, a diesel truck, and it would just pour diesel fuel out. And then the trucks would drive over them and the diesel fuel would compact the sand. And that's how the roads were made.
And
you did millions and millions and millions and millions of gallons of diesel fuel. I mean, it was but it was like a waste product for them at the time.
Yeah, and it was
a complete and total. I don't know. It's like skim milk. It's useless to anybody. I don't know how to equate that to anything.
And they didn't want to use water because it would just evaporate.
Oh, I mean, instantly. Yeah, it's 100-something degrees, 120, 118.
So it's basically like what you would see at like a dirt track race as a water truck, or like on a motocross track or something. Or, because they'll do the same thing, but with water to keep the dust down.
So, but it's all diesel.
Diesel, yeah.
And, I mean...
Because it kind of compacts and makes a decent surface to drive, or a better surface.
Okay, so all that being said, we're all getting ready to take off with this 10,000 gallon... I'm not sure of the gallons, but it was the biggest goddamn thing I ever seen that held juice.
Yeah.
And I know in America, it was like twice as much as what they ever let you haul on the road legally. So I'm driving, and I'm behind this guy, and we haven't even gone 3 miles from where we got these things. And the truck in front of me turned over. Just went...
Oh, man.
And I'm like... mine doesn't work. I don't remember what I did, but the truck in front of me turned over. There was a bunch of scuttlebutt. And next thing you know, I'm in a deuce-and-a-half water truck. And the other things I got pictures of it. So I didn't have to drive that damn Mercedes in. And my buddy that was in that truck, I mean, it was like a slow motion.
What happened?
The sand underneath it gave way.
Just kind of washed out. It was loose.
Well, no. It was the diesel. I mean, it was... sometimes it would pool. And if you go slow, the thing about the diesel roads, you got to keep moving.
Yeah.
You can't stop really, because if you start to stop, it's like fucking quicksand.
Yeah, you'll slowly sink right into it.
I'm like, I'm watching him going, oh, that's gonna suck. Oh, that's gonna suck. And then he's just laying on the side.
So it just kind of was like an off camber and just slowly
just
started
the whole
going.
damn thing. It wasn't uneven. It was just.
Were you there for the recovery?
No.
That sounds like it wouldn't be fun given it's all on poor traction
I don't
surfaces.
know. They probably just pushed him off the side and buried him. I mean, that happened a lot.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
So, is this thing still on?
Yeah.
The tank story? You want to hear that?
Yeah. You got more?
Well, the tank story is about the best thing that happened to me as far as entertainment wise.
Let's hear it.
So when I got to Fort Stewart, they know I was the driver's rodeo winner. I'm coming over there with all these awards for driving and marksmanship and accuracy with the gun, and accuracy with grenades, and
We haven't even gotten there with guns and grenades and that.
yeah. So I was an expert in all that stuff, and especially the driving.
Did you like pistols or rifles better?
I never shot a pistol
Really?
until after I got home to the States. It was just M16,
Yeah.
M50, an M60 machine gun.
Jeez.
But I packed a M60 in basic training, and then I had a 50 cal that I packed when I was in AIT, which shoots bullets the size of my thumb.
Yeah. There was no ear protection?
Yeah, there's the ear protection. It was pretty good. I mean, I like the ear protection. I wish I could still get it, but it was just orange things, and they had like little levels on it. You just put them in, and it had a little stick you could pull it out with. It was real easy. But I never had any issues with hearing protection. I always wore it because I wanted to hear when I'm
Now?
yeah.
Now
But-
and beyond.
So, all that being said, when I got there, I got to another chemical company. So, typically, an NBC guy goes to a company and runs an NBC room, which is what I told you when we first started talking.
Yeah.
The only other place is to go to a company that's a battalion or division support for chemicals. So, Fort Stewart, Georgia, 24th Infantry Division, had a chemical support company. I think it's 82nd Chemical. I can't remember what it is. But so I went to that company. And then when I went to this company where there's like 200 people like me,
Yeah.
I am no longer like in another company where there's only one of me out of 200 people.
Yeah.
So that, but it separated me from the herd with all the stuff that happened when I was in Korea,
Right.
which pissed off a whole shitload of people because this guy just got here from Korea. How come he's driving the first sergeant around? Or how come he's driving the lieutenants around?
Because the guy can drive.
Well, that's not how, anyway, but it didn't work that way back then.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up being a driver for the S1 officer, which in a company that's like a butter bar new lieutenant thing. So the S2, no, it's a S3 officer who goes out and checks for perimeter and security and stuff. And then there's company commander. I can't remember how it all works, but so I was a driver for the lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
And the one lieutenant I was driving, he got transferred somewhere else, got promoted, and was going to move up. And then this new one came in. He was a butter bar, which is the gold one. So he's the first lieutenant, second lieutenant. Second lieutenant is low, first lieutenant's high.
Okay.
So he was a second lieutenant, butter bar, because it's gold, and he was new. He just came in from college, basically. It's like graduating college. Okay, now you're an officer and you're in charge of all these dumbass enlisted people. Which is basically probably what they were told.
Yeah.
So he wanted to go out and scout for a place for the chemical company to set up and have maneuvers with the decontamination equipment. We're going to set up a whole decontamination site for the division, and the division's going to be on maneuvers, and it's just like war. So we'll set up all of our decontamination equipment, the help station, and they had inflatable hospitals, which were air conditioned, which everybody wanted to be on that team for sure because we're in Georgia,
Yeah.
southern Georgia. And these big gray Quonset huts, you'd inflate them, and the air that you inflate them with is air conditioned before it even blows up the thing.
Dang.
So those rooms were like 70 to 75 degrees, even if it's 113 and 200% humidity.
Yeah, the humidity is also a big kicker.
Anyway, so this lieutenant's going out. He's got the map, and my job as a driver is to go wherever he says. But I'm also signed and responsible for the vehicle. And this is a story that challenges both things. So I'm pretty cocky. I'm 19 years old. You know, it's the summer of '89. I'm back in the States. Everything's awesome. You know, I'm really doing good, having fun. And so I'm out driving this lieutenant, and I've already done all the shit I did in Korea and all that. So I have, you know, I'm 19 and all that stuff.
You're achieved.
So
For that age.
Lieutenant's out there going, and he's driving. He's being a complete dickhead. You know, turn over here. Private, turn over there. I want to go down here. That's fine. And whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine. I mean, he's new in charge. And at the time, I didn't think this way. But he kept doing that. And the more he kept doing it, I just did what he said. Did here. So then he says, let's go down here and check this out and see if there's an area down here. And I seen the sign that said tank test area. There's this fucking sign right there on the side of the road. It's like 13 by 10
and
sign.
You weren't
brown with white letters that are reflecting.
And you
Tank
weren't in a
test area.
tank. You're not in a tank.
I'm in a Humvee.
Yeah. Humvees are pretty capable, you know,
Yeah,
given
well,
what they are,
I'll
but they're
explain
not
that.
they're not on tracks.
So he says, go back here. I want to see if we can find an open area. It looks like there's an open area. And I'm not looking at the map. Yes, sir. I seen the sign. I said, do you know this is a tank test area? We're fine. Just keep going. Okay. So we turn, and it's the roads. What there is of a road. We're not talking asphalt, and that we're just talking the gravel road with rocks and stuff. It's probably 15, 20, 25 feet wide, which is wide for a road for vehicles. Mm-hmm. But it's not wide for a road for tanks.
Yeah.
So we're driving, and he says, just follow the road all the way around, and there's this area here I want to look at. So we go in, and I see this puddle in front of me, and it's like as wide as the road and probably 12 feet long. You can ford water in a Humvee up to the air cleaner, which is like, if I remember right, it's like 38 inches before water will start going in. Because I don't have the snorkel kind with the thing. I got a regular old Humvee. So we go for the first one, and the water kind of comes up through the drain holes in the feet. You know, and the rubber floor mat came up and floated back down. And he's like, ah. He picked up his feet, and I'm like, try not to get me wet. Yes, sir. So we drive not another 80 feet, and there's another one that's wider than the road and probably 30 or 40 feet long. So I'm looking to try to see where the high point is so I can put his side of the Humvee on highest ground. So I went for it, and we're going through, and I get a little resistance, and I gave it gas, and we went through, and he's like, that's fine. I don't want to get wet. Okay, no problem, sir. Then we had a clearing, and we stopped, and he got out, and he's orienting the map, and he's looking, and he says, I don't know what this is, but I think we're going to go ahead and keep going forward. Well, if I'm remembering this right, it was an area that was in red with red lines and a pink undercolor. And it looked like a giant lake. And then there was blue on this side next to it. So we go around the corner, and I'm now looking at what the map showed. And I'm like, sir, I don't think we should go through this. It's not deep. Just go. We'll be fine. I said, I think it's too deep. We don't know how deep it is. I mean, sir, you want me to proceed? Yes, go. So I started in it going slow. And as we started going deeper, he says, well, maybe you should back up. And we're not backing up. He says, back up. Oh, okay, I put it in reverse. We did not move.
No. And you're not going to move forward either at that point.
Well, no, we went back a little bit, and I said, sir, I put it in 4-wheel low, which locks every fucking thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it locks just like the airlock thing on the,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It just locked everything up. And he says, well, then just go forward. So I put it in low, transfer, regular drive, hit the pedal, it said, and it went down, and the water shot up over the roof of the Humvee, on top of the Humvee, and we were underwater, but there was still an air gap where the water was going over to where the air filter was clear. And I went through that thing, wide open throttle, hammered all the way as far as it would go in third gear in low range, which probably was 10 or 15 miles an hour, but it was still pushing this water all over the place. The floor mats were floating up. All the shit and soda cans he had in the back were floated up in the back. And I get through this thing, and the Humvee, he says, pull over there, God damn it.
Oh, at this point, he's wet.
Yeah, so I'm like looking, and there's like a grassy area. And I said, I'm okay. And the Humvee's going, and its white smoke is just pouring the hell out of the tailpipe over here. Yeah. And he's like, what'd you do to this thing?
Oh, gosh.
Sir, let's set it off, and we'll, check. Maybe I got accidentally water got in the air filter. We'll check that out. Well, pull over there. I said, okay. So I pulled over there. He gets out. As soon as he steps out, he sinks up to his knees. He climbs back in the Humvee, crosses inside the Humvee, and got out on my side. And he's standing there, and he's looking at this dry dirt area that he's at, and where he told me to pull the Humvee over. And I go over there to try to open the air cleaner up, and I'm like, Jesus, I'm sinking down, and I'm like, so I got over there, and I took the floor mat actually out and put under my feet on his side, and you better clean that before you put that back in. I'm like, okay, yes, sir. And I put it over there, and I'm taking the air filter off. I got the hood up, and I'm undoing the fucking can. I open the can, and the water comes rushing out like this, and I take the air filter and I set it up there, and I don't have towels, I don't have nothing, so I'm just like,
you can evaporate it over time, and maybe it'll be okay, or.
So I said, well, let me see if it'll run now. So I went over there, and it started it, and it cleared up, and it was running good again. Yeah. So I'm thinking, all right. He says, all right, well, let's get out of here. And I'm like, while all this is going on, the Humvee is sinking.
What kind of terrain was it? Like muddy marsh?
Well, apparently the red and the stripes means quicksand.
So it's just.
It's a super swamp.
Yeah.
It's a tank test area.
That's where I'd be testing my tanks.
And the lieutenant goes, what the hell's going on here? And he looks, and in the time that he got out and I screwed with the air cleaner, I don't even have the air cleaner back on or the cap back on the damn thing. It's just sitting over there. That whole side of the Humvee was already past the towing pintle, buried in the quicksand. And I said, this ain't coming out of here.
Not unless you get.
Well, try. Sir, I gotta be honest with you. If I try to get this out of here, it's just gonna make it go China quicker.
Yeah.
Well, go get help. I'm like, can't we use the radio? Well, they got radio silence right now. They got radio silence. Gee, sir, that would have been nice to know. But okay. I said, sir, I can't leave the vehicle. I'm signed for it. I'm telling you to leave the vehicle. I'm telling you. I said, sir, I'm not leaving the vehicle. Because I knew that was the absolute only thing I could tell him as an enlisted person to tell an officer. And he went with it. And I'm glad I stuck to my guns on that.
Yeah.
Because
For sure.
I heard him coming back about 3 hours later. It just sounded like some god-awful tornado hurricane sounding coming over.
Tank?
And they came to get me out with what's called an 80-80 recovery tank. It's the largest tank the military had produced up to that time. The tracks on it were 3.5 feet wide.
Holy cow.
It had two 12-cylinder Detroit diesels in it.
That is insane.
And they had a boom that outreached 50 feet. So it had a 50-foot boom that collapsed down on top of it.
Yeah.
And it reaches out to get leverage to pull. And it's got outriggers that would come out of the side of the tank to stabilize it or something. I don't know what all.
So they basically could have picked that thing straight up and
They
framed
tried
it over.
and tried and tried. They hooked onto the towing pintle with this thing and wide open throttled it, trying to get it to come out. They eventually got it out, but the vehicle was completely ruined.
Yeah. Well, the dog's going crazy. Jackson just got here, so we'll wrap this up and we can pick it up another time. Thank
Cool.
you.
All right, Jake.
I had a blast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying getting to know my family members. Pretty soon we'll be getting more of my friends and kind of how I grew up and who was around and what it was like, and we'll keep going and go down this journey. Hopefully you can get something out of this, entertainment, enjoyment, learn something, share, similar experiences. Hopefully you can relate to it, but appreciate y'all listening. And we got more to talk about with Uncle Jay. He's got more current stories. He's a great guy, very entertaining. Love to be around him and his family. Thank you.